Now we're coming to our next speaker. This is Mr. Andrei Bastunets. You also know him already. He is a lawyer and chairperson of the Belarusian Association of Journalists. Mr. Bastunets, I am very glad. I think we're all very happy that you can be here today and tell us about the current situation in Belarus.
Добрый день, коллеги.
Dear colleagues, good morning. I'm happy to see you all here. I will start with the good news, as odd as it may sound. On the 20th of October, 25 years ago, the Minister of Justice registered the Belarusian Association of Journalists. So the good news is that we managed to survive during those 25 years, and we managed to become one of the leading CSOs in the country. PASH was founded by 38 people, 38 journalists. Now we have about 1,400 members. And the bad news is that during all those 25 years, we had to not only BASH as an organization, but all Belarusian journalism had to work in very unfavorable conditions. Just yesterday, in Minsk, one judge sentenced, she had like 5 trials over journalists. So 5 journalists were sentenced to the maximally possible term, 15 days in jail. One journalist received 13 days in jail. So altogether, it's 73 days in jail for alleged participation in mass events and not obeying the police officers. So just for you to understand what's happening, those trials, they are organized via Skype. So journalists continue to remain in detention centers. Witnesses, police witnesses also give their evidence via Skype, and they wear masks and balaclavas during the trial, so it's impossible to identify them. And actually, the court does not even bother identifying them, and they just give their fake name. And the court actually confirms that although those processes administrative trials, so they should not protect witnesses like this. And also they just lie in court. There are videos of how the journalists were detained, and you could see that they did not disobey the police, and they wore press vests and press badges and IDs, and they had all the documents, so they were equipped with everything to show that they were just doing their job covering a mass protest. But still, 5 people only in Minsk, only yesterday, were sentenced, most of them for 15 days of jail. And in general, from the beginning of this year, but mostly during the post-election period, our journalists served for just their job, such administrative cases, for more than 600 days. So mostly like 2 years altogether, for just covering protests that they have the right to do according to the law on media. And this is not a mistake of the state bodies or their misunderstanding of the function of journalists, because the Ministry of Internal Affairs, especially the minister, used to say that journalists just work at mass events just as police officers, but at some point something happened and they started hunting for journalists. In fact, if earlier the blue vest saying press could serve as some kind of a protection for journalists, showing the press row during mass events, because as you know, we have more than 2 months of constant mass events, and you know, hundreds of thousands of protesters come out every Sunday, and not only on Sunday, and journalists are covering the protests, but just during the recent times during the last several weeks, the police started hunting for journalists, not to let them make the picture, as the authorities like to say, and this is what they do on purpose, and this is part of the main policy and structure that's happening now in the law enforcement bodies and in the authorities, because they do not only detain journalists and just take them away from mass protests and they put them behind the bars, but also our websites are blocked with the exclusion of just several other resources. Every Sunday in Minsk, they take down mobile internet from 2 p.m. until 7 p.m. While mass protests are happening in the country. Several newspapers, including Komsomolskaya Pravda in Belarus and Narodnaya Voля, are not distributed by the state distribution network in Belarus, and they cannot be printed in the country. They have to print it somewhere else. And then the state monopoly network for distribution and subscription refused to distribute their newspapers. Some newspapers just stopped printing. And about the website, I have already told you, some of them are blocked. Fortunately, such a website as .by is still in access, but the Ministry of Information kind of deprived it of the status of media. So it will continue to work as a website, but journalists will lose the rights of a journalist. And out of yesterday's 5 journalists who were sentenced to jail terms, 2 of them worked actually for Tut.by. And by the way, we were speaking today about international campaigns, about creating, or about international companies and like international media houses, like, you know, creating some kind of state BBC. In Belarus, all reporters of all media were deprived of accreditation a couple of days ago, and they announced a re-accreditation, a new accreditation procedure. And that means that all journalists of foreign media lost their legal status, and some of them had to leave the country, and some of them were deported from the country, and the only ones who feel more or less okay here are representatives of such Russian companies as Russia Today. They actually came to replace the journalists who, from the state media who left because they left or they were fired because they were forced to spread fake news. So Russia Today came and replaced those journalists on state TV channels. About 30 people from Russia Today, technical staff, editors, who just replaced the strikers. So this is the sad situation in Belarus today. I don't know what will happen in the recent days, next Saturday and Sunday, because representatives Svetlana Tikhanovskaya is one of the leaders of the opposition, announced next Sunday as the date of the ultimatum, and I suspect that the number of journalists who will be detained in the near future, especially on Saturday and Sunday, it will just increase dramatically. Nevertheless, we are kind of getting used to the situation, and this is not good. And I believe that still, oh, one more good thing is that today not only Belarusian Association of Journalists works as an organization that unites the journalists who try to show resistance to violence from the authorities. Today we have a lot of initiatives from journalists when people go to police and complain against detentions, and hundreds of people signed those protest statements. And when Vaj made a statement, and we invited other media organizations to sign the statement, we received signatures of over 50 media organizations, including media outlets, to sign our statement. I didn't even know we had so many. So this kind of solidarity is also very typical for this moment. So you can oppress only those who resist. So yeah, Belarusian journalism and Belarusian society does resist this kind of pressure. So in brief, this is the analysis of the situation, and in the second part of the day, my colleague Olga Hoin will give you a more detailed account of what's happening in Belarus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bastunets. There's already one question from our participant, Yuri. I'm going to read it out loud. Actually, several questions. So it starts with, how many Russian propagandists are still working for media outlets in Belarus, and how many local collaborators are still working for the regime? If the regime is violating the law, why common people and media are following it? Is it your own way of doing revolution in such a soft and slow manner?
Ну, получается, что так, получается, что это наш
Well, it
собственный.
turns out this is our own Belarusian way. I don't think our Ukrainian version of Maidan is possible because, it's been 26 years of the regime. It's cemented completely, and all law enforcement structures are completely obeying the president and the law enforcement officers, even those who support the protesters privately. They say that if there are any actions about occupying buildings or some kind of violence from protesters, it would be like a big present for the regime, because the regime would just drown it with blood, and that's it. And Russia will will guarantee that this will really happen if the situation doesn't change in the peaceful way. As for the people and the public and their attitude, many people are talking about diminishing the law. The law, like the law default we are talking about, the law does not exist in general in our country. Journalists are detained and beaten, but maybe to a lesser extent than protesters, although we have more than 50 cases of violence against journalists from the police after the election, and some of the cases are real tortures. But so now I will put it directly. The public calls those law enforcers fascists, punishers. They really just oppress the protest actions with the violence, the protest actions which are absolutely peaceful. And I have already said that Russia still supports, at least still, it supports Alexander Lukashenko. Also informationally, we have a more complicated situation than in Ukraine. It's very different from Moldovan or Georgian situation. So we have state-owned media, the TV, the broadcaster that is spread all over the country. Main channels, they have some kind of social package that is available for everyone, and all of them are state-owned, and 60% of the shows are produced in Russia. They don't, and the cable networks that we have, so we don't have a complete Russian TV, pure Russian TV channels in our packages, but we have like NTV Belarus, not NTV Russia. And 80% of this NTV Belarus would be produced in Russia, Russian shows. RTR Belarus, Mir TV company that is funded from the state budget, and you can understand its content immediately. ONT, STV Belarus, they're all based on Russian channels, basically. And they have the privileged position in the Belarusian market. And when some hosts, TV hosts, when, for example, the leader of the presidential pool decided to resign and to leave their jobs due to violence, police violence against citizens after elections, they just couldn't spread the news that they were supposed to do. They were also arrested and they had to serve 13, 15 days in jail. Some of them left the country. And then Russian consultants, technical workers came to replace them. So there were not actually many of them because anyway, Russian TV programs prevail in Belarusian TV. And there are some independent websites, internet resources that can only oppose this kind of information flow.
Thank you. There is one more question from our participant. Where is it now? Okay. Here. Yes, from our participant, Lyubov Miyokina. She was wondering the following. Didn't you think that the change of Lukashenko to another candidate would lead to an even greater spread of Russian propaganda in the media and the influence of the Russian media on the Belarusian ones?
Если коротко, нет.
To put it in short, no. The precedents that are supported by the society, even those that are kind of, well, the candidates that were even blamed for being like pro-Kremlin candidates, although it's not proved yet, I think all of them can actually change the situation to the better, because today the politician who is controlled by the Kremlin 100% is Alexander Lukashenko, and possibly all the events that are happening in the country is just to direct it at just weakening him. Maybe even Moscow was doing that to somehow make him even weaker and to take away some resources from him. But still, I'm absolutely sure that the change of power in the country would be a positive moment. And let's notice that now the protesters take the streets under white flags, although the authorities call it a fascist flag. And maybe they speak Russian language, but they use white flags. So they use the national emblem of chase, Pagonia. And this shows that the national revival in the country is developing very strongly in the recent months. And nobody actually expected that. Actually, I did not expect that to happen.
Thank you very much, dear participants, for your questions, and dear Mr. Andrei Bastunets, for being here, for your time, and the very interesting and important insights.